Alright, well, I realize that this review is coming about 3 months late, but considering the fact that All Out is coming out this coming Saturday night, it's time for me to finally get this done. So let's get into it. This is All Elite Review. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of All Elite Review. Today we're going to be reviewing the first event that AEW put on all the way back in May. Double or Nothing. Basically, the wrestling show that turned the wrestling business on its head. Where do we even begin with this? And the type of stuff that it has caused in the wrestling landscape here in the United States. Just to give you an idea of what AEW has caused to happen, basically, you got the guys over at WWE, like Vince McMahon, saying, AEW is not competition. Oh, really? Okay, then, would you mind explaining to me a couple things? Like offering your wrestlers 5-year contracts? Like, before AEW even existed, the longest contract I had ever heard of was 10 years, but that was for the Big Show, and, Vince wanted to lock him into a long-term deal. So there was that. But, other than him, he was basically the exception. The longest I have heard of besides that for the WWE is 3 years. And now all of a sudden, Vince is offering 5-year contracts. That's crazy. In addition to all that, he also scheduled the Evolution show to be run at the same time on the same night as AEW Fight for the Fallen. And now, with AEW's weekly television show coming to TNT in October on Wednesday nights, Vince McMahon has moved NXT from the WWE network to the USA network on Wednesday nights, expanding it to 2 hours long. And it's basically going to become a counter program to AEW's weekly television show. You still think Vince is doing this despite the fact that he thinks that, they're not competition? Then why are you making all these moves, Vince? You are scared out of your mind, is what it is. Because you see All Elite Wrestling just pop up, and not only are they delivering much better television shows, or wrestling shows, I should say, than you are, but, they've announced up to 6 weeks, 6 shows for their weekly television show. Let me see if I can remember all 6 right off the top of my head. Episode 1's going to be in Washington, D.C., which is pretty big. And by the way, I think they've had tickets on sale for like the first 4 or 5 shows. I think episodes 1 through 4 sold out in like 30 minutes or less, if that tells you anything. And in the meantime, WWE can't even sell out their arenas. They have to tarp off most of their arenas. Just to give you an example, I think it was like a month or 2 ago when the WWE was at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that venue seats about 21,000 people. For an episode of Raw a month or 2 ago, they only had 3,500 people show up for that show. And here's the thing, WWE's not going away anytime soon. they basically got handed a $2 billion deal from USA Network and from Fox. Of course, Fox is getting broadcasting rights to SmackDown Live, and they're going to start in October as well. And from what I heard, they're moving SmackDown from Tuesday nights back to its original Friday slot, which is interesting. But in addition to all that, their television ratings have been in a downward spiral. I mean, they're struggling to stay above a 2 on Raw right now. I mean, it was only like a year or two ago we were wondering, man, they're struggling to stay above a 3, and now they're struggling to stay above a 2. You know, now you got All Elite Wrestling coming in with much better wrestling shows. I mean, they're just letting it all hang out, basically. And, you know, these wrestlers that they got have a lot of creative freedom to basically do whatever the hell they want, you know, as far as how they want to project their character. Now, obviously, they're going to be in more control of storylines and certain things of that nature, but as far as characters, they're basically going to let the guys express themselves however they want, you know, which is a big deal. And they're already selling out their weekly television shows, and in pretty big arenas too. I mean, they're going to Washington, D.C. for the debut episode on October 2nd. So that's a little more than a month away. So, yeah. Man, I need a serious haircut. So they got October 2nd in Washington, D.C. And then October 9th, they're in Boston. And then the next 2 weeks, they're in Pennsylvania. Week 3 would be Philadelphia. Week 4 is Pittsburgh. And then week 5, they're going to Charleston, West Virginia. And then week 6, they're going to go to Charlotte, North Carolina. Ric Flair country. And the road's his hometown, basically. So, that's as far as they've gotten so far. But obviously, they're, you know, scheduling shows, which they kind of have to do way in advance. You know, they have to have some type of schedule, you know, to go off of. But for AEW, it's only 1 show a week, 2 if they have a pay-per-view. So it's a much lighter schedule than WWE, which honestly I think will be a lot better because we're not saddled with all these different wrestling programs from the same organization all friggin' week like WWE. It gives their wrestlers a little more time to rest and, you know, heal injuries and stuff like that. And on top of that, it gives them a little more time to kind of think out storylines and kind of think what direction they want to go in. Especially with their weekly show coming up in just a little over a month. And at the time I'm recording this, we're only 3 days away from All Out. So, of course, there's some big news stories, and they had to make some changes, unfortunately, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Probably near the end of this review. So let's get into it. 2019 AEW Double or Nothing, the debut show of All Elite Wrestling. They had 9 total matches on the card, 2 on the pre-show, and they also had a couple things happen. They had the AEW World Title unveiled, and I got something to say about that. And don't worry, it's a good thing, because I do have some great things to say about that championship belt. And we also saw the appearance of a wrestler from WWE whose contract expired about a month prior, and it basically allowed him to show up for this event. So once again, we'll get to that when we get to it. But the show started out with the Casino Battle Royal, and a lot of people were kind of confused as to the rules of the Battle Royal, and I'm just kind of like, what is so confusing about it? Basically, there's a special deck of 21 cards for all 21 entrants, and whatever cards you pull, there are 4 different suits and the Joker. Each suit has 5 cards. 4 suits, 20 cards, and then the Joker card for number 21. Basically, you draw a card, and if it's a suit, then you'll be entered into the Battle Royal based on which suit you're in. And then after everybody draws cards, then the officials will shuffle the deck, draw a card, and whichever suit they draw, that will be the 5 individuals who will start the Battle Royal. And then I think it was like every 2 minutes they draw a new card, and that suit will enter the Battle Royal, all 5 of them, and then so on and so forth until you get to the Joker card, who is the last man in. My thoughts on this Battle Royal. I mean, Battle Royals, they can be kind of hit or miss. In this case, it was kind of right in the middle. The beginning of this Battle Royal was just really sloppy. But it did get better as it got near the end. Some of the highlights from this Battle Royal, the appearance of Shawn Spears, aka Ty Dillinger from WWE. What a waste by WWE. I mean, he was massively over with the 10 count gimmick, and they just completely wasted him. Now he's known as Shawn Spears in AEW, and when he came out, the crowd was going absolutely apeshit, doing the 10. That's pretty cool. And Spears hit an Ishigoroshi on MJF and did the whole 10 thing, and then gave him the finger, which was kind of funny, much to the delight of the crowd. I mean, they were going nuts for him. The next highlight, Michael Nakazawa being eliminated. Michael Nakazawa sucks. I think I said as much during the fight for the... actually, I haven't said as much. Because I believe, we haven't gotten to that review yet. I thought he was at Fight for the Fallen, but he actually wasn't. But I'm going to say it right now. Michael Nakazawa sucks. The frickin' body oil shit. I mean, that's corny bullshit. And of course, he was at Fyter Fest, and wait till I get to that match in the next review. Then there's a tag team known as Private Party. They did a Hurricane Rana cutter combo on Brian Pillman Jr. That looked kind of cool. Tommy Dreamer brought some of the hardcore toys in. Of course, ECW. Luchasaurus's double chokeslam on Private Party was pretty cool. And then Hangman Adam Page, of course, he had the knee taped up from his little encounter with Pac overseas. And he hit his finisher, the Deadeye, which was basically a belly-to-back driver, or what I call the Dragon Driver, on Joey Janela. It was once called the Rites of Passage, but he renamed it to the Deadeye, which I think is a much better name. Ace Romero, whose appearance makes me not feel so bad about my weight. Jesus Christ. Pounces Marco Stunt out of the ring, and of course, when you have a guy like Marco Stunt, who could take all these crazy bumps, it's just funny to watch. Spears hit a DDT on Joey Janela. That's just basically spiked him. Luchasaurus with that back roundhouse kick with that big old leg of his, and then he hits a choke slam on Janela, which sends Janela through a table on the outside. And I gotta tell you something, Joey Janela is fucking nuts. Okay, the type of bumps that this guy takes is... I mean, it's like, how is this guy still alive? I mean, the bump that he took through that table, I mean, I thought he broke his neck. Because, I mean, it looked like he went head first into that frickin' table. And it's just like, Jesus, man. I mean, what is the point of taking these sick bumps like that? Jimmy Havoc's rolling Death Valley Driver near the end of the match was also pretty good. And then Luchasaurus hit a bicycle kick on Jimmy Havoc. MJF tried to eliminate Paige after Paige eliminated Luchasaurus, but in typical Battle Royal fashion, Paige held on to the rope and then hits MJF with the where he holds onto the ropes and then jumps in a somersault into the ring and hits him with a lariat. He calls it the buckshot lariat, and eliminates MJF to win the Casino Battle Royal and earn the one of the number one contendership spots for the AEW World Championship, which will be decided at AEW All Out. And he would take on the winner of Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho, which was the main event for this show. Like I said, this match was kind of sloppy, but it did start to get better near the end of it. I gave this match 2.5 stars out of 5. The second match on the pre-show was Sammy Guevara and Superbad Kip Sabian, a couple of high flyers. And I've seen some of Guevara's stuff, like highlights and shit on Lucha Underground. The dude's got some freaking skills, I'll tell you much. This match was over way too quickly for my taste. I mean, these guys were putting on a pretty good match, and it was over in like 10 minutes. Kip Sabian with a Hurricane Rana, and he also had a plancha to the outside. Guevara with the double stomp. Kip Sabian with a missile shotgun drop kick. The coolest part of the match was Guevara doing a tumbling suplex. Basically, he had Sabian in a suplex. They tumble over the top rope, land on their feet, and Guevara hits a suplex on the outside. And then Guevara hangs Sabian on the barricade and then jumps off the apron in a shooting star press, which was like, what the hell? That was pretty crazy. And then Guevara goes for the 630. Sabian puts the knees up and hits him with what he calls the Deathly Hollows, which is an inverted Samoan driver. Think of it as an inverted attitude adjustment in a sit-out variation for the win. The match was a little too short for my taste. Was honestly wanting to see more out of this, but it was still a pretty good match. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. I'm going to try to run through this. So we get to the first match on the main card, which was SoCal Uncensored, Frankie Kazarian, Scorpio Sky, and the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels against Strong Hearts, El Lindemann, T-Hawk, and Shima from Oriental Wrestling Entertainment, which is basically a wrestling organization over in, I think it's China, either China or Japan, right around in there somewhere. And of course, Shima, he's a pretty famous name here in the States. I mean, he's pretty big on the indie scene over here. So, highlights from this match: Kazarian had a 3-hit combo. Looked like he had a kick, then a knee strike, and a lariat. That was pretty cool. Scorpio Sky's drop kick. I mean, holy crap! He has one of the best drop kicks in the business. Kazarian with a blockbuster, which was pretty cool. T-Hawk with a sit-out powerbomb counter, which was pretty cool. Shima with a double knee drop, which is one of his patented moves. Daniels with one of his patented moves, the STO. He makes that move look so good. And then the Strong Hearts with a pretty cool little triple team combo. Started with a lift-up knee by, I think it was Shima, and then an enziguri, then a back suplex driver, and then a German suplex pin combo. That was pretty cool. Drink. And then Daniels hit a tope suicida, basically a dive through the middle rope, onto one of the Strong Hearts. Nearly landed on the friggin' timekeeper. And I think almost landed on someone else, and even checks it, you alright? And the person was like, yeah, I'm okay. That was pretty cool. Shima with the perfect driver, which is basically a leg trap Falcon Arrow for the most part. Scorpio Sky with a diving cutter. Basically, he was on the apron and did a spinning dive and hits the cutter. That was pretty cool. Kazarian with a slingshot DDT, which is similar, except it was with a DDT spiked El Lindemann. Daniels hits the Angel's Wings, but the count was breaking up. I love the Angel's Wings. That move looks cool as hell. Scorpio Sky with a tope con hilo to a couple of the Strong Hearts on the outside, and SCU hits the best Meltzer ever, which is a combination of Daniels' best moonsault ever and a Tombstone pile driver. Basically, it's their variation of the Young Bucks Meltzer driver, in which one of them does a somersault and a tombstone piledriver combination. But in this case, it's the best Meltzer ever, where Daniels does the best moonsault ever, and one of the other guys does a tombstone, and they got the 3 count and the win. This was one hell of a match. Well choreographed. Didn't really see anything in the way of botches. I mean, this match was just, it kicked ass. I mean, it was a great start to the show, and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Next up, I think I would say this was the weakest match on the card, unfortunately. On the main card, anyway. And this had a lot of potential, too. Kylie Rae versus Nyla Rose versus Dr. Britt Baker, and then Awesome Kong got added in by Brandy Rhodes. This had a lot of potential, but it just kind of fell flat. I mean, Nyla Rose was supposed to be the big beast, but then they brought Awesome Kong in, and Awesome Kong kind of stole Nyla Rose's thunder. And both Nyla Rose and Awesome Kong didn't really do a whole hell of a lot in this match. It was mainly Britt Baker and Kylie Rae that kind of took over the show. Some of the highlights from this match: Kylie Rae hit a tope suicida. Nyla Rose with a leg drop and also a spine buster on Kylie Rae. Kylie Rae took those bumps with took those bumps well. Britt Baker with the sling blade. That sling blade move is becoming very popular. I mean, on the WWE main roster, I know Finn Balor uses it, Seth Rollins does, and here in AEW, Britt Baker uses the sling blade, and so does Pentagon Jr. So that's a very popular move. I mean, it looks cool. Nyla Rose with a Samoan drop on Britt Baker. That was nice. And then they had a Tower of Doom spot where Kylie Rae and Britt Baker were trying to superplex Nyla Rose, and then Awesome Kong came in and powerbombed both of them, which superplexed Nyla Rose. So that was pretty cool. Britt Baker and Kylie Rae both hit super kicks on Awesome Kong while she was on the apron, and Rose finished her off with a spear into the steel steps, which took them both out for the rest of the match. Kylie Rae hit like a little bit of a roll through into a low super kick. That was pretty cool. Britt Baker with a fisherman neck breaker. She just drilled her with that one. Kylie Rae with a deadlift German suplex into a pin, but Baker hits a super kick which knocks Kylie Rae's ribbon off, and then hits the Adam Cole special, which is like a brain buster onto the knee for the 3 count and the win. Can't say I'm surprised that she really knows how to do a good super kick, and also uses a move known as the Adam Cole special, considering that Adam Cole is her current boyfriend. Funny how that works. I mean, honestly, this was a fatal 4-way, but it might as well just have been a singles match between Rae and Baker, because those two did the most out of this match. I mean, Nyla Rose did some things, but Awesome Kong didn't really do jack shit, which is a bit of a shame, because Awesome Kong can really go in the ring. So I don't think she was used well here at all. I gave this match 2.75 stars out of 5. Definitely the weakest match on the card, and it's a shame because it had potential. But if there is one thing that I will say about All Elite Wrestling right now, and it certainly shouldn't be a surprise, considering that the Young Bucks are executive vice presidents of the company, and they're going to certainly see to this. The tag team division in AEW is probably the best in the world right now. And that's no joke. I mean, a lot of the wrestlers that they've signed are, formed tag teams. Unlike WWE, who just slaps 2 random wrestlers together. A lot of the tag teams that we're seeing in AEW, they're legitimate groups. Like the Best Friends and Helico and Jack Evans, even though they don't have an actual name, they've been together for a long time. SoCal and Censored, the Strong Hearts, the Young Bucks, the Lucha Brothers, a team that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit, the Dark Order. Um, there's a lot of different tag teams in AEW right now, and I would say they have the best tag team division right now. I mean, the choreography, the crazy ass moves that they do. I mean, they just let the rough side drag, and the tag team matches that I've been seeing in AEW have been some of the best that I've ever seen, bar none. And this one was no exception. The Best Friends versus Angelico and Jack Evans. Admittedly, I wish they would have worn different colors because it seemed like each of them had like a layer of green. Especially Angelico and Jack Evans, they had like the highlighter green going on there. But my highlights of this match: Jack Evans with the back spring elbow and then tumbling over the top rope and landing on his feet. I mean, I think he's definitely cleaned up his aerial assault. I mean, in his early years, I mean, he definitely had some great flippy moves, but he was kind of reckless and sloppy at times. But I think he's definitely cleaned things up a little bit, and you can see it. One of the moves that I did not write down on here, but I do remember happening, is when Angelico had one of the Best Friends. I think it was Trent Beretta, and a fireman's carry, and then Jack Evans jumps onto Beretta's back and does a moonsault to the outside onto Chuck Taylor. That's crazy shit. I was like, holy crap, these guys, they're just letting like I said, they're letting the rough side drag. They're just hanging it all out. And the crowd was into it as well, which is certainly saying something considering, how dead WWE crowds seem to be nowadays. But Angelico and Evans with a back suplex double stomp combo. That was pretty cool. Beretta with a lariat, which turned Evans inside out. I love a good lariat. Especially when the guy on the receiving end, just starts doing tumbles and all this other shit. I mean, I love a good lariat. Taylor with a belly-to-belly suplex into the corner, basically tossing, I think it was Angelico into Jack Evans, who was kind of seated in the corner. Taylor with a sliced bread on the outside. Beretta with a step-up tornado DDT, just planted Jack Evans. And then Beretta, of course, with the flying knee. I love a flying knee attack, too. And then the Best Friends hit the soul food and half-and-half suplex combo. And then they hit a crucifix into, basically throwing Jack Evans into a cutter. That looked nasty. Evans with a Yoshi tonic, and then he did a step-up tornado kick where he basically jumped onto his teammate's back and then jumped off and did a tornado kick, I think, to Beretta. That was pretty cool. Angelico and Evans with the assisted 450. So basically, Angelico grabs Evans' foot, and then Evans jumps up into the air, and then Angelico basically lifts him up, and it just basically it spins Evans into like a 450 splash. That's pretty cool. Angelico with a crucifix buckle bomb. And then Evans hits his finishing 630 splash, but it was broken up. The Best Friends do a Doomsday knee strike. Taylor hits a Tope con hilo to the outside. And then the Best Friends hit their finishing move, the Strong Zero, which is a double stomp from Chuck Taylor. And Trent Beretta's own personal finishing move, the Crunchy, which is basically like a leg clutch pile driver for the 3 count and the win. And I gave this match 4 stars out of 5. It was awesome. And then after the match, they were attacked by the Dark Order. At the time, they weren't known as that, and a lot of people didn't really recognize him. It was a big guy wearing a mask, and then this kind of Viking-looking dude. And a lot of people were like, "Who are you?" Well, as it turned out, they were originally known as the Super Smash Brothers, Player Uno and Player Dos. Although now they're known as Evil Uno, the masked guy, and Stu Grayson. And basically they had like a group of minions also wearing masks and shit, and they basically went in and beat down both teams. And then both Uno and Grayson started doing these crazy moves. Uno did this crazy move to Evans, where he basically had him in like a pump handle and then turned it into kind of a flatliner. I know one guy who does that move and he calls it ataxia. And then Stu Grayson did like a Argentine rack and then dumped him down into a knee smash, a backbreaker across his knee, and then they did their double team finishing move, which is a gory special bomb and a diamond dust combined into one. They call it the fatality, obviously referring to their video game personas. But I gotta say, I think I said as much in my Fight for the Fallen review. That's a cool ass name for a finisher, and it looks pretty cool. I mean, they made it look devastating here at Double or Nothing when they did it to Trent Beretta. I mean, the fatality is, a perfect name for that finisher, to say the least. Yeah, I gave that match 4 stars out of 5, but I guess due to like copyright reasons, because Nintendo can be dicks like that, they changed their name to the Dark Order, which is fine. And I think we're going to see a lot more of these guys in the near future. Then we get our Joshi matchup, Japanese female wrestling matchup. It's a 6-woman tag. Hikaru Shida, who is signed with AEW, Riho, who's a free agent but has been featured in pretty much every show, and she's going to be at All Out and facing Shida as well, and Ryu Mizunami versus Emi Sakura, Yuka Sakazaki, who's been in AEW a few times, and I think she's going to be at the Battle Royal that's at All Out, and Aja Kong, who is a Japanese wrestling legend. So not really we didn't really know what to expect with this one because it was all Japanese wrestlers. So their style of wrestling is a little wee bit different than what we see in the United States. They still put on a good show, and Riho in particular, she took some frickin' nasty bumps. And it's like, damn, I mean, she's a tough one. For a small woman like her, she's a tough one. And she took some bumps in this one and some hits, which I'll talk about here in a second. Highlights of this match: Shida with a hip toss on Yuka. Riho did like a scissors thing into like a roll-up pin. That was pretty cool. Yuka with a Frankensteiner. Emi with a surfboard stretch on Riho. And then this was one of the ouch moments of the night. Aja Kong snapmared Riho into a sitting position and then just straight kicks her right in the back, and you could hear it. And it was just like, ooh. I mean, this wasn't one of them kind of love taps. This was like a straight soccer kick, and you could hear it across the arena. It was just like, damn, that was one hell of a spinal tap. And then Aja hits a pile driver on Riho. Only got a 2 count, though. But Riho comes back with a victory roll into a double stomp, one of her patented moves. Riho hits a spear, I think on Aja Kong. Riho hits a water wheel suplex. Riho's head scissors takedown was pretty cool. But another sick bump that Riho took was Aja's backdrop driver. I mean, Aja just tossed her like a friggin' rag doll, and it was just like, damn. Tell you what, Riho can take it and she can dish it out. But especially take it. Like, just think about, the bumps that I talked about. She took a stiff kick to the back, a pile driver, and a backdrop driver. I mean, Jesus. Shida with the step up enziguri, so she started to do some pretty cool offense. She also hit a knee strike on Emi and then a superplex. Aja did a double suplex on Riho and Rio. Yuka hits a springboard dive on both of those. Aja with a brainbuster on Shida, followed by Emi doing a moonsault, only for a 2 count though. Aja tries hitting her patented spinning back fist, but hits Emmy instead. Riho does a diving crossbody onto Aja, and then Shida hits the Pisaku knee on Emmy for the 3 count and the victory. Not really much to say about this one. It was alright. I mean, it was a little confusing at times, but and there were a few botches here and there, but overall it was alright. Some of the bumps some of these ladies took are just like, Japanese ladies are crazy sometimes. And I'm talking about the wrestlers. I mean, they can take some sick bumps. I gave this match 3 stars out of 5. The next match on the card is what many considered to be the match of the night. I couldn't quite give it that, but second best ain't bad. And a lot of people gave it 5 stars. I couldn't quite give it that. Maybe because there was a botch or two. Wasn't too terrible, but I mean, I gotta call it like I see it. But the storytelling in this match between Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes was absolutely insane. Of course, you had the beginning where Cody smashed a Triple H looking throne at the beginning, and of course you had Dustin Rhodes coming out in the jumpsuit and the half paint. That was pretty cool. And some of the stuff that Dustin did in this match, it's like, this guy is 50 and he's doing all this shit. It's like, damn. And this was the kind of match that a lot of people wanted to see in WWE at WrestleMania. And Vince, of course, and just lets it go to waste. So all I gotta say is fuck Vince. Anyway, getting highlights of this match. Cody with a tope suicida to the outside, but then Dustin comes back with a somersault plancha off the apron onto Cody, and it was just like, damn. And even Jim Ross was like, what the hell was that? He didn't expect that. Dustin, of course, with a bulldog, Cody with a dragon screw, and then a power slam. And then, of course, when Dustin was setting up for, of course, the Shattered Dreams, which is the kick to the balls in the corner, Cody took off one of the turnbuckles and threw it to the ground, and Dustin just took it and threw it into the crowd. Souvenir! But Cody managed to work himself loose. Dustin charged at him, and Cody basically did a drop toe hold that sent Dustin into the exposed turnbuckle, although he did cover his face, but he did blade after that, so we got to see a lot of the red stuff. And it was a big part of this match, and it was a big part of the storytelling. Although he may have cut himself a little bit too deep. I mean, he did say he lost, I think, about a pint of blood, which, that's quite a bit. But give him credit. I mean, he worked through it. Cody hits a curb stomp that looked pretty nasty. Dustin with one of his patented moves, the power slam. Cody locks in a figure 4 leg lock. Woo! But Dustin was able to reverse out of it. Dustin hits an atomic drop, and then whips Cody with his own belt. Dustin with the code red on Cody for a 2 count. Dustin then hits a superplex, nearly slips coming off the top rope, but still manages to hit it pretty good. And then he hit his version of the Crossroads, which is basically a suplex into kind of like a swinging neck breaker type version. Only got the 2 count. Cody comes back with a disaster kick in his own Crossroads for a 2 count. And then Dustin hits Cody's Crossroads for a 2 count. Cody then hits a bicycle kick, and then he sets him up for the Vertebreaker, which is a pretty dangerous move. Which it's known as Din's Fire when Cody uses it. They kind of botched it a little bit, but I think Cody was making a move to try to protect Dustin so he didn't, land on the back of his neck and head, considering the fact that he is 50 years old and can't really take those kind of bumps and recover from it. So it was a little bit botched, but I think it was just Cody protecting his brother. And then Cody hits one final Crossroads for the 3 count and the win. And then, of course, afterwards, Cody basically said that he needed Dustin as a tag team partner against the Young Bucks, which happened at Fyter Fest, or not Fyter Fest, but Fight for the Fallen, which I covered in my first episode of AEW, or All Elite Review. And the promo that Cody cut, where he said, "I don't need a friend, I don't need a tag team partner, I need my older brother," and his voice cracking and all that stuff. I mean, that was an emotional moment. And it certainly got a lot of the crowd, I'll tell you that much. I mean, without a doubt, a lot of people felt that this was the best match of the night. I don't think it was quite that, but the storytelling for this match was awesome. A lot of the moves were pretty good. I gave this 4.5 stars out of 5. So even though I can't quite give it 5 stars, this was still one hell of a match, and the storytelling was excellent. And then after this, we had Bret Hart come out, and I was like, wait, what? The hell was that? Noises. But then they had Bret Hart come out with the AEW Championship belt, and I was just like, wait, what? They got Bret Hart on board? That was cool. And then they brought Hangman Adam Page out. Of course, he was one of the guys who were going to be competing for it. And then they had MJF come out. And I got to say something. MJF is one of the best heels in the business right now. I mean, the promos that he cuts and his heel persona, I mean, he's gotten the crowd to hate him, and not in the way that they want him off TV. I mean, there's two kinds of heat. The kind of heat that you don't want is the get the fuck off my TV heat. Basically, where people just don't even want to see you anymore, and will probably change the channel once you're on it. But the kind of heat he's getting is the heat that you actually want. The I want to see you get your shit pushed in kind of heat. And I gotta tell you something. When he was out there for the AEW title unveiling, and he was just laying it into, Bret Hart and Page, the crowd started chanting "asshole," and I'm pretty sure MJF came in his pants at that point, because it's like, yeah, I got him in the palm of my hand. And then Jimmy Havoc and Jungle Boy showed up and beat him up a little bit, and then Adam Page kind of threw him back into the crowd. And then Bret Hart unveiled the AEW title. It was a little bit of a botch because he was aiming it towards the entrance and not towards the hard camera. But I gotta tell you something. That championship belt looks legit as fuck. I mean, I've seen some of the championship belts that WWE has unveiled over the past couple years, and they have been garbage. Have you seen that 24/7 championship they unveiled this year? Garbage. It looks like a pile of puke. But the AEW World Championship, I mean, I was wondering what it was going to look like, and I was a little bit skeptical, based on what WWE was releasing. But when they unveiled that belt, whew, now that's a championship belt. I mean, it honestly, it kind of resembles something that UFC has with their championship belts, in a way. But it looked like a legit championship belt. It looked cool as fuck. So big thumbs up for the championship belt. Speaking of championship belts, they're going to be unveiling the Women's World Championship at All Out. And they're going to be holding the Casino Battle Royal once again, this time for the women's side. So, I mean, they could have simplified things, like I said in my Fight for the Fallen review. But it is what it is at this point. And they also have so in addition to the Casino Battle Royal, they also have a match between Riho and Hikaru Shida, which is a singles match on the card. So I'm guessing they're going to have the winner of Riho and Shida against the winner of the Casino Battle Royal. And they're going to have the championship match on the first episode of the weekly television show. Okay, that's cool. So we'll have our first AEW Men's World Champion at All Out, and then we'll have our Women's Champion on the first week of the television show. So that's cool. Now, here was my match of the night. The AAA World Tag Team title match between the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks. This was a highlight reel in and of itself. The amount of stuff that these guys were doing is insane. And this was, for me, the match of the night. Highlights of this match. And of course, they're going to be, by the way, they're also going to be having a ladder match at All Out for the AAA Tag Team Championship. These guys were putting it all on the line in this match without the ladders. What the hell do you think they're going to do at All Out? Certainly got me intrigued, I'll tell you that much. So, highlights of this match. Phoenix did a double arm drag on both of the Young Bucks. And then Phoenix and Matt Jackson did an exchange on the outside where Phoenix went for a super kick, and then Matt went for a tornado kick, and then they both went for a drop kick at the same time. That was pretty cool. And it certainly got the crowd fired up, too. Because they realized, if this is the type of shit we're going to be seeing, this is going to be one hell of a match. Drink. Phoenix hits a drop kick on Matt, I believe. It's kind of hard to tell who's in the ring at this point. The Lucha Brothers with a double super kick. Pentagon with a sling blade. Like I said, popular move. Nick does a arm drag head scissors combo off the top rope to both of the Lucha Brothers. Matt does a gorilla press drop on Phoenix, drops him down, and hits a spear on Pentagon. That's kind of a Goldberg kind of move there. And then the Young Bucks with the assisted Frankensteiner, where one of the Young Bucks basically launches their tag team partner into him doing a Frankensteiner on their opponent. Pentagon Jr. with a monkey flip into the corner, launching one of the Young Bucks into the other. Here was another crazy moment. Phoenix jumps onto the ropes while having like a wrist lock on Matt Jackson. Jumps onto the rope, kicks Nick while Nick's on kind of straddled on the top rope. Springs around a little bit and then jumps into a Frankensteiner on Nick. And that got Excalibur on the announce table excited, and the crowd went nuts for that because that was like, holy shit. And then he finished that off by doing a rolling jumping cutter on Matt Jackson for a 2 count. I was like, damn, that was one hell of a combo right there. That was all in one fluid motion. Phoenix is fucking amazing, dude. This is just part of the match right here. So you can imagine what's going to happen at All Out this Saturday night. Matt hits a blockbuster on Pentagon, and then he starts hitting Northern Lights suplexes on both of them. Nick with a springboard X Factor transition into an acai moonsault to the outside. That's a patented move by him. Nick with a lariat bulldog combo on both the Lucha Brothers. That was cool. And then the Young Bucks do their cease and desist move, which is a double sharpshooter. But the Lucha Brothers get to the ropes. Young Bucks hit an elevated 450 splash on Phoenix for a 2 count. The Bucks hit the Buckle Bomb Enziguri combo that they're also known for. And then they do a sliced bread, do a Doomsday Device sliced bread combo, which is a move that was made famous by the Motor City Machine Guns, an old rival of theirs, for a 2 count. Then there was a bit of a super kick party where everybody was super kicking everybody. And then here was another crazy exchange where Pentagon springs off of his brother's back and does a Canadian Destroyer on the apron on Matt, which looked like it hurt. And then Phoenix does a Slingshot Destroyer into the ring on Nick for a 2 count. Like I said, these guys are going for it all. The Lucha Brothers do a assisted dive to the outside where Phoenix jumps up onto his brother's shoulders and Pentagon assists him before Phoenix dives over the top rope onto the Young Bucks. That was pretty cool. And then Pentagon hits a combo Widow's Peak Fear Factor, which is his package pile driver, on both the Young Bucks, and that was only a 2 count. Well, actually, hit the package pile driver, I think it was on Nick, and then Phoenix hit a Swanton Bomb, and it only resulted in a 2 count. The Bucks hit a double super kick on Phoenix, and then Matt hits a Brain Buster on Phoenix, which was a bit of a surprise. I mean, they're going back into the well and using moves from their old rivals. I mean, the Brain Buster, which is basically a Brain Buster onto the top turnbuckle, I mean, that's an El Generico move. So they are just breaking out all the stops in this match. And then the Bucks do another one of their patented double team moves, the Singapore Roll into the 450 into the Moonsault. And then the Young Bucks do a double stomp package pile driver combo, which is freaking dog. As I was saying, the Bucks do a double stomp package pile driver combo, which is typically the Lucha Brothers finishing move. And then right after that, Nick does a Sky Twister press to the outside on Phoenix, but they only got a 2 count out of that. And then Pentagon hits his arm breaker, try to prevent Matt from setting up for his side of the Meltzer driver, which is the Tombstone. And then Pentagon hits a pump handle driver for the 2 count. Phoenix starts super kicking Matt under the armpit, but then I think Phoenix was going for a Tombstone, but then Matt reverses it into one himself. Nick super kicks Pentagon on the outside, and then the Bucks hit the Meltzer driver on Phoenix for the 3 count and the win, retaining the AAA World Tag Team Championships that they would eventually lose to the Lucha Brothers down in Mexico, I think a couple weeks later. But yeah, this match was crazy as all hell. And of course there was a bit of storytelling too, because at the beginning the Young Bucks really weren't on the same page because they were a little bit rusty. They only had like 2 or 3 matches up to this point, because of course with all focusing on AEW and stuff like that, while the Lucha Brothers had like 40 or 50 some odd matches up to this point this year, at this point in the year. So it seemed like the Lucha Brothers were a little bit more in tune than the Young Bucks were, but once the Young Bucks knocked the rust off, so to speak, they were just as good as the Lucha Brothers, and they were able to go over on them in this match and retain the AAA Tag Team Championship. I gave this match a perfect 5 stars out of 5. It was amazing, and it is worth watching over and over and over and over again. But now we get to the main event: Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho, Alpha versus Omega Part 2. Of course, they had that match over in Japan a year or 2 ago. Except this time around, it is to determine who faces Adam Page for the AEW World Championship, which is going to take place at All Out. One of the cool things at the beginning of this was Chris Jericho showcasing all of the gimmicks, basically, that he has had throughout his years in the ring. Started with the Lionheart gimmick from WCW, and then showcased the List of Jericho, and then of course he had the light bulb jacket as well. And then when he came out himself to his own song, Judas, from his band Fozzy, he was basically wearing an outfit that basically comprised of all of the previous gimmicks plus some of his new ones. Like he didn't really wear the hat before then, but he also had the scarf, which is List of Jericho kind of gimmick wore. He had like a worn light bulb jacket. He was wearing tights that kind of resembled his Lionheart gimmick. So it was kind of everything rolled into one. And I tell you what, Jericho, for his age, I mean, he's approaching 50 himself, and some of the shit that he was doing in this match, he was kind of turning back the clock a little bit. But highlights of this match: Jericho with the missile drop kick through the ropes. Kenny Omega also had his nose broken in this match. It was kind of hard to tell which one might have done it, but I think it was when he was sent into the face first into the middle turnbuckle. That's when he kind of really held his nose, like something had happened, and it turned out he had broken his nose. So that's why we were seeing, the blood instead. Kenny Omega with a Singapore roll moonsault combo, one of his patented moves. Jericho with the middle rope missile drop kick, and of course he was also doing like the springboard drop kick. His patented moves that we've seen from him for years. Jericho hit a lariat that turned Omega inside out. That was pretty cool. And then Omega hits his V-trigger knee strike in the corner. Omega really loves to spam that V-trigger, but I love how it looks. It's like a snap knee strike, and I love a good knee strike. Omega hits a back superplex on Jericho, and then another V-trigger. Jericho hits a German suplex, which basically sent Omega flipping onto his face. And then Jericho hits a back body drop through the table that was set up on the outside. Actually, before that, Jericho, they were both on the outside, and Jericho pushed Omega into the crowd, so he grabbed one of the cameraman's cameras, and then Omega basically spit water into his face. And then when Jericho was trying to set up the table, Omega basically did like a tope con hilo to the outside while Jericho was holding up the table. And then while Jericho was on the ground, Omega put the table on top of Jericho and then did a flying double stomp onto the table onto Jericho. That was pretty crazy. And then Jericho hits a code breaker as Omega came off the top rope. It wasn't totally clean, but it still looked devastating as hell, but only got a 2 count. Omega hit a couple of his snap dragon suplexes. The dragon suplex is a powerful move in kayfabe. And then Omega hits a tiger driver for a 2 count. Jericho gets the walls of Jericho. Even went so far as to go back to the old school lion tamer, but no tap out here. Omega hits one more V trigger, and then they kind of botched the finish a little bit. What was originally supposed to happen was Omega was going for his one-winged angel, which is a single leg electric chair driver. But Jericho was supposed to counter it and spin out and counter it into a DDT, but they kind of botched it here a little bit. So they basically had to improvise a little bit, do a few more moves. But then eventually they did the same spot again, but they actually got it right this time, and Jericho reversed the one-winged angel into a DDT, which basically spiked Omega. And then Jericho hit one more code breaker, and then he broke out a new finishing move that he had been working on. He calls the Judas effect, which is basically a spinning back elbow. Now, in wrestling, this doesn't really seem to make much sense to a lot of people, but in MMA and mixed martial arts, the spinning back elbow is one of the most dangerous moves you can do, because depending on how fast and how much power and speed that you put into it, you hit someone with the point of your elbow into someone's face, you can completely shatter it. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of mixed martial arts organizations have banned the spinning back elbow, because it's a very dangerous move in mixed martial arts, especially if someone uses a lot of power and speed with it. I mean, but here in professional wrestling, it can make a good troll finisher, which is, that's Jericho's kind of MO. But he hits the Judas effect and actually gets the 3 count and the win over Kenny Omega, and will face Adam Page for the AEW World Championship at All Out this coming Saturday night. Without that botch of the DDT, I was willing to give this like a 4.5 out of 5, but that botch of the DDT brings this match down to 3.75 stars out of 5. It was still a pretty good main event, though. And why did that just pop up? That's weird. But then Jericho gets on the mic and he's like, I demand a thank you. And he's like, AEW is not a company for the fans, it's a company for me, basically healing it up. And he says, I demand a thank you. And then out of the crowd comes the artist formerly known as Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley shows up, and the crowd just blew the roof off the fucking place. I mean, when he got in the ring, the crowd just erupted. And it's just like, holy shit. And you could tell that Moxley, when he got in the ring, I mean, it seemed like he had been re-energized. I mean, while in WWE, he just was going through the motions and didn't really seem like he was into it. He was really into it here, and you could tell. He hit the dirty deeds on Jericho, then hits the dirty deeds on the referee, then tries to do it to Omega, but Omega fights back. They fight through the crowd and then go up onto the stage. They get on top of the poker chips, where Moxley hits the dirty deeds on top of the poker chips, and then basically does an attitude adjustment on Omega off the top of the poker chips. And that is how the show ends. And they were actually setting up a program for Omega and Moxley at All Out. Unfortunately, Moxley has had to pull out of that match this coming Saturday due to a reoccurring of MSRA in his elbow. If you don't know what MRSA is, it's a staph infection. It's called methicillin. Shit, I forget what it's called. I think it's methicillin resilient. Man, the name is crazy. I think it's called methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's more commonly known as MRSA. It's a very dangerous staph infection, and he actually had that staph infection I think like a year or two ago when he was out of action for like 9 months due to that staph infection, and he nearly lost his arm over it. But he basically said as much on Twitter that he's going to have surgery to remove the bursa sac that basically is where the bacteria seems to be gathering, and be done with it entirely. But it also means that he's going to have to pull out of his match against Omega, which may be a blessing in disguise because they actually managed to get Pac on board and face Omega at All Out. So that could be a really good match, considering, you know, Pac's work ethic. And of course, considering the fact that he was the one who injured Adam Page, and Page is going to be there, that would be a nice bit of continuity to add to the mix. I mean, that's another thing about AEW that's different from WWE. Continuity. So don't be the least bit surprised if, you know, after that match, if Pac somehow emerges victorious or this, that, and the other. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Adam Page makes an appearance at some point and him and Pac get into a little bit of a scuffle. Again, continuity. But that is AEW Double or Nothing. My final rating for AEW Double or Nothing, honestly, I was completely blown away by this show. They definitely still have they had some technical issues to work out. I mean, there were a couple of camera shots that were botched. Alex Marvez on commentary fucking sucks. Thankfully, they're replacing him with Tony Schiavone, yes, for their weekly television show. Which means that they are going to have the lead announcers from the two guys for WCW and WWF from the Monday Night Wars. Tony Schiavone was the lead announcer for WCW during the Monday Night Wars, and Jim Ross was the lead announcer for WWF during the Monday Night Wars. And now they're going to be together at the same table with my favorite announcer of this generation, Excalibur. That is fucking awesome sauce. So I'm going to be really curious to see how that turns out. But yeah, Alex Marvez at the commentary table just fucking sucks. I mean, he sounds like somebody who's announcing at a golf tournament. I mean, he sounds so disinterested, and it sounds like he's ready to fall asleep. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, dude. I mean, Excalibur, I mean, he like calls out moves, and his knowledge of the business and all the wrestling moves is just crazy. So, and I'm experienced with Excalibur through his matches with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, which is how I got to know him. So his commentary work, in my opinion, is pretty fucking cool. But other than some issues that happened, during this show and some botches here and there, this, the first show for AEW, they just knocked it out of the park. My final rating for Double or Nothing is a 9 out of 10. It just absolutely knocked this show out of the park. Well, this review has gone on long enough. Man, another hour-long AEW review. Crazy. Um, so that'll do it for this edition of All Elite Review. Thank you very much for watching. The next review will be AEW Fighter Fest. And of course, I've already covered Fight for the Fallen, so the next review after Fighter Fest will be the newest show coming up this Saturday, All Out. And I certainly look forward to that. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. See ya! Well, that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, like, and subscribe to my channels here on YouTube.com and over on BitChute.com. If you would like to sponsor my channel, go to my channel page at subscribestar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Have a good one.